Hello, everyone. Luciano Oliveira Lawyers. We are back to our live streams. One more live stream. Today is December the 15th, 3:30 Rio de Janeiro time, and we are getting started. If you are live as usual, you can ask for content to be discussed over here. It does not need to be legal. It could be legal. It could be related to, life in Brazil and Portugal. Anything you have in mind, we can discuss over here. Heads up that if you are asking about a very specific legal topic, I may be unable to answer since the bar associations, they do not allow us to provide like a free advisory or a free consultation. So therefore, if you do ask such a question, what I can do is to probably discuss more in general lines the subject that you are interested in. And this way, we do not incur in any type of issue with the bar associations. I hope that makes sense. Let's take a look at our chat window to see if we have any participation so far. And yes, we have Sean. Welcome, Sean. Sean Don. Oi, boa tarde. Boa tarde, Sean. Where are you as we speak? Are you in Brazil? Are you back home? Let us know how is your journey in Brazil going, Sean. And in the meantime, wanted to address that's been a common type of question in our consultations, like currency exchange. As you probably know, the U.S. dollar has been in an all-time high against the Brazilian currency, the Brazilian real, and now a single U.S. dollar can buy over 6 reais. And like 20 years ago, when the Brazilian currency real was launched, a single US dollar would be exchanged for a single Brazilian real. But over time, this number started to change, and now we are experiencing a top record for the US currency. And not surprisingly, many people are deciding that now is the right time to buy property in Brazil. Now, the question that I also ask a lot is not only about the timing, but is also about whether the U.S. dollar is going to keep getting stronger and stronger, right? Like, I mean, if you're following up on the currency exchange, changes, you would kind of have this impression that, it's going to keep just going. And to be honest with you, like we have a relationship with the, most relevant currency exchange banks in Brazil, and nobody can actually tell for sure, right? Like, I mean, if anyone would have a clear answer to that, they would be able to become billionaires, because then you could just like invest in the so-called options at the stock exchange. And the options, they are usually instruments or, like investment tools for you to bet what a certain currency or stock is going to be valued like in some time from today, right? So it's usually almost like a gamble. Like if you are right, you make a lot of money, but if you're wrong, you pretty much lose your shirt, right? Like, so nobody can tell for sure if this trend of the U.S. Currency getting stronger and stronger is gonna continue or not. All right, Sean, I will be back in Rio on Tuesday. Good for you, Sean. I'm going to be back to Rio on the 6th. I'm going to be back to Rio on the 6th, January the 6th. Before that, I'm going to be in São Paulo. Later on in the month, I'm going to be in Brasilia, all right? But I'm going to be in Rio on the 6th. And if you happen to be in Rio de Janeiro downtown, Sean, make sure to stop by for some coffee. All right? There is no need for you to give any heads up. You just show up. And as usually, I do remind our clients, we don't provide the consultation on the spot. We always ask our clients to handle the onboarding up front. But for a cup of coffee, there is absolutely no need for a heads up. You just show up and you're going to share a nice cup of Brazilian coffee with us. And of course, you're going to end up taking pictures with us because we like to post such pictures on our social media. So there's the invite, Sean. I'm waiting for you to confirm. All right, now you are on the spot. Okay, I'm just joking, Sean. Maybe you have a busy schedule, but the consultation is for real. The invitation is for real. If you want to drop by for a cup of coffee, you are very welcome. All right. Now another common question we have had recently. It's about the retirement visa. As you probably know, we are handling at this time not only visas and immigration in general for Brazil, but we are also handling for Portugal. Okay, not surprisingly, Portugal and Brazil have a very strong connection. I'm not sure if I am the ideal person to talk about the United States and the UK, but the impression I have is that Brazil and Portugal are much closer than the UK and the United States are. We have a very close relationship with Portugal. There is a very, common interchange of peoples and families, between those two countries. And just as a personal example, like my mother and my sister, they both live in Lisbon, okay? And so there you go, right? There is a very strong connection. Like my whole family, they came from Portugal. I was born in Brazil. But most of my family, they live nowadays in Portugal, okay? So that's, there is that. And so going back to the retirement visa, we were saying that, it's very common for some people in our consultations to ask, listen, what is the best option for me? Is it going to be Portugal or Brazil? And that's a very personal decision. What we usually share in our consultations is like a perspective, is our perspective on specific topics of interest to the client, right? Like some people are going to say, well, if safety is a major requirement, of course Portugal is going to be the natural choice. There is no denial. Portugal is times safer than Brazil. There is no denial, all right? Let's not sugarcoat reality, right? Like Portugal is much safer than Brazil. Now, if we are talking about variety, if we are talking about excitement, if we are talking about outdoors, if we're talking about natural beauty, if we are talking about being in touch with a very warm people, and then Brazil is going to be a big winner for sure. So there you go. It really depends on what's important to you, and therefore there is no clear winner. It's impossible for someone to say that either Portugal or Brazil is a clear winner when it comes like to a destination for someone's second life. All right, I see Marisa Navas. Olá, Dr. Luciano, boa tarde. You're pretty welcome, Marisa. So good to see you over here. So Marisa and Ricardo, they are in Lisbon, Portugal, and they do help us keep our office in Lisbon in good shape. Okay, so if you want to have a cup of coffee in Lisbon as well, then you let us know. For Lisbon at this time, like we don't have someone who's constantly at the office. So our team over there, they are sometimes in the office, sometimes they are not. And therefore, for you to have a cup of coffee with us in Portugal, in Lisbon, yes, you need to give us a heads up, okay? Which is not the case for Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo. We always have people in our offices in Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo, and therefore no need for a heads up. You just show up and you have a nice cup of coffee with our team. All right. Okay. So going back to the retirement visa, just a couple of distinctions whenever we are comparing Portugal and Brazil. For Portugal, usually the Portuguese consulate is going to be a little bit more demanding when they are reviewing your financials. They want to make sure that you have both a safe and secure a source of income, and you also have reserves enough for you, to start your journey in Portugal. Brazil is a little bit more, straightforward. Like Brazil is not going to do like lots of checkings. Brazil is going to ask for two things. First, that you have at least a couple of $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month as retirement income, right? It cannot be employment income. You got to be retirement income. And Brazil is also going to ask you to have, proof that you are getting such income. But Brazil is not going to, check if you are in a good shape financially, right? I had such an interesting consultation on Friday. On Friday, there was this prospective client, and she was mentioning that she was in debt, like she was in big time debt in the United States. And she was concerned that, Brazil would not approve her even though she was meeting the minimum requirement of $2,000 a month. And my answer to her was, listen, Brazil does not have such a requirement that you are in the blue. As long as you are making the $2,000 a month, Brazil is most probably going to give you the retirement visa, all right? But Portugal, on the other hand, they could potentially identify such a situation and say, listen, you make like a good amount of money, but you are upside down, right? Meaning that you have more debt than assets and income, and therefore not approve your retirement visa. Okay, so this is like one of the distinctions. Another interesting point is that Portugal makes really easy for people with immigration rights to work in Portugal. So if you are retired, you are welcome to work in Portugal. In Brazil, there is no specific provision addressing that. Our current interpretation is that, yes, you can work as long as the work is informal, because if you try to work for a formal employer in Brazil, they would not find your paperwork sufficient to hire you, right? So the distinction here for Brazil is that the companies would not feel comfortable about hiring you as a holder of the retirement visa / residency, if you will. All right, so let's take a look here. I see some participation in the chat. Cristina Lembo, olá, boa tarde. You are welcome, Cristina. Good to see you over here. Cristina here from the U.S., currently in Ilha Grande. My question is regarding criminal background checks. Does it need to be apostilled like a birth certificate? That's such a nice question, Cristina. And I don't think this is actually a legal question, all right? I mean, this is more like, a paperwork type of thing. I'm going to be bold over here, and I'm going to answer your question, even though, we attorneys in Brazil, we are not supposed to provide, legal consultation or answer legal questions, but this is just like, a paperwork thing. I don't think this is providing a consultation. So the answer here it's gonna depend on the type of immigration benefit, visa or residency that you're looking for, Christina. So if you're talking about the digital nomad, the background check does not need to be apostilled, all right? Now, if you're talking about the retirement visa, or if we are talking about the marriage-based residency in Brazil, then yes, you're going to need to have the background check apostilled. Particularly for the marriage-based residency, our recommendation is usually to get the FBI background check. Okay, FBI background check is pretty standard. It's pretty standard for the marriage-based residency, because it's something really high in our immigration framework, and therefore the Brazilian immigration is going to expect you to get the FBI background check with a matching apostille. All right, Christina, I hope that was helpful. We have wow reviews. Hi, Ben here from the UK. Welcome, Ben. Good to have you over here. Ben says, self-employed as a sole trader, not a limited company. I meet the minimum $1,500 per month, but have only been trading 3 months. Will this be an issue? Brazil Nomad Visa. All right. So, Ben, there is some interpretation here to be done. This does look more like of a consultation, and therefore I cannot answer your question directly. We want to keep our live stream in good shape, and we don't want to have problems with the Brazilian Bar Association. But just as usual, I'm going to elaborate more on the like employment requirement, and then you can potentially schedule a consultation to have your specific case reviewed, right? Like that would be a good approach for you, Ben. But the Brazilian immigration, when an analyst is reviewing the paperwork, they have a checklist, right? They have a checklist, and they need to check the boxes. And there's gonna be a box over there which says employment or verification of work, and they have specific requirements under or within these requirements. So first thing, you're going to need to provide some type of documents proving that you are working, right? Income by itself is not enough. Very common for people to ask, listen, I have here the minimum of $18,000 sitting in a bank account. Do I still need to prove that I'm working? Yes, of course you do need to prove you're working. Otherwise, this wouldn't be the digital nomad visa. It would be the $18,000 visa, right? Meaning that you don't need to be working. You just need the $18,000. But guess what? $18,000 does not make you a digital nomad. It just makes you like a person who has $18,000 in a bank account. So going back to the requirements, right? Like I'm going to give you a few examples of items that the analyst will need to check within the work/employment verification. So they are going to ask like for how much you are making. They are going to ask for this document to be signed by someone on behalf of either an employer or a client. They are going to ask in details the activity that you are providing and more, right? Like, so I just gave you a few examples that are not really suitable for people who work in a way that you cannot get a third party to verify your work for you. Okay, I'm gonna give you another example. Like there is the famous platform OnlyFans, right? Like OnlyFans. Like we do have some clients who produce content for OnlyFans, and they are unable to secure a digital nomad visa by using the paperwork provided by OnlyFans. And the reason for that is that OnlyFans, at least based on I never saw their contract, right? Like this is actually information provided by our clients, and they kind of say that it's a standard contract you download, like it has terms of services. But again, this thing does not explain in details the nature of the service that you are providing. It's not signed by a person on behalf of OnlyFans, and it does not meet a few other requirements that the Brazilian immigration is going to look for in the verification of work. Okay, and for those clients that we have, the solution that we found, it was to get them qualified through something else, because the Brazilian immigration, like they want to see that you're working, but they don't necessarily require that you are getting all your income from that specific proof of employment, right? So, like actual case, one of the clients we got approved here at the firm that was producing content for OnlyFans, she was also doing marketing for her mother's restaurant in Tokyo, right? Like she was a content producer and she was making big bucks, I don't know, like over 20,000 US dollars a month, but she could not qualify because of the lack of paperwork related to her OnlyFans, gig or work, let's say, right? But she did have enough documents to show that she was working on her mother's restaurant website. And of course, like her mother was producing, did produce a letter of verification, meeting all the requirements. We told them exactly what they should have in this letter, and her mother was able to get her the letter, and she provided the financials with 18,000 US dollars and over in her bank account, and there was no issue to have her approved. All right, Ben. So I hope this is helpful. And again, in your case, a consultation would be a good idea, because in our consultations, we not only answer questions, but we also think together, right? Like we can come up with a strategy for you to secure the Brazil digital nomad visa. Just remember, like our consultations there are actually intended to bring clients on board. Like we don't support self-applicants, right? Because it's just not worth our time, right? Some people, they say, well, you charge for a consultation and I just want to use your consultation. No, we don't work like that. Like if you're going to do a self-application, then we don't offer a consultation, even paid, because we need to use our time for clients who are going to hire our services. But you're pretty welcome to keep questions coming here in our live stream. That's very helpful, not only for you, but other people. So we are happy to address, Ben, all your questions or topics to the best of our ability, and given like the limitations we have due to the commitment to the bar associations. I hope that makes sense. We have Christina. Christina says, thank you. I'm looking for the digital nomad visa, and I'm starting to gather my paperwork. I got my FBI background check, but wasn't sure I needed the apostille process. Christina, there is another distinction, right? Like whenever we are answering questions here, we are usually talking about the application route in Brazil, because there are two routes, right? Like one route is for you to go through a consulate abroad, and there is another route, which is the route that we prefer, which is to apply in Brazil. And then when you apply in Brazil versus applying in the United States, there is a distinction which goes like this. Like technically, when you apply for a visa, you got to do it from abroad, right? So if you apply for a visa, it means you're going to a Brazilian consulate in another country. And when you are applying while you're in Brazil, which is what we usually do, you are actually applying for a residency, right? So visa and residency, they are just like, technical terms but they are kind of the same thing. Like if you go through a consulate and you get a visa, or if you apply in Brazil and you get a residency, both of them, they are going to give you 1 year, and both of them are going to result in the RNEMA, which is like the resident card, right? So at the end of the day, there is not much a difference. It's more like the different routes that you're gonna pick. There is also the matter that consulates, they have a discretion on how to handle the procedure. So in our experience, we cannot kind of give you a very accurate idea of how your application is going to be processed, because they have more discretion. Now, if the application is done in Brazil, we do have a better control over the process, and we can usually tell you with a high degree of accuracy, like if you're going to get the residency or not. All right, Christina. So going back to the topic of the apostille, for the digital nomad, usually you don't need to get an apostille at the consulate, and you don't need to get an apostille if you are applying in Brazil as well. Okay, because the digital nomad is known as a more entry-level immigration benefit, and I'm glad that the Brazilian immigration, they kind of try to make it easier on the applicants, right? Like they don't want people to go overboard in terms of getting documents, getting apostilles, right? Like particularly if you're hiring a third party to handle your apostille paperwork, this could easily cost like $200 per document. And if you're going to try to handle by yourself, then it's a pain in the neck. You need to deal with the Secretary of State or Department of State. There is a lot of steps you need to follow. You never know if it's going to work for sure or not, and therefore most of our clients, they end up hiring a process, a service provider to handle the apostille piece of their applications. All right, and when they work with us, like we actually have a partner service provider in Texas, and they handle apostilles like across the country. And what we do for our clients, like we have an arrangement with the service provider, they charge a flat $100, and this makes easier for our clients to use a third-party service provider instead of paying $200 to someone or having to do all the legwork by themselves. Okay. Christina Lembo is also asking, I'm also curious about how taxes work under the digital nomad visa. Will I need to pay taxes in the U.S. in Brazil? Right. So that's a super common question, Christina. And again, I think this is not like legal advisory. It's just to tell you, a couple of pieces or dynamics of the taxation under the digital nomad visa in Brazil. So the digital nomad visa, it does not trigger taxes, and it does not shield you from taxes, right? So it has no effect, meaning that it does not help and it does not harm you, okay? Meaning that you're going to become a tax resident once you cross 183 days, okay? So you're not going to become a tax resident because you got the digital nomad visa. You're going to become a tax resident because you're going to have been eventually in Brazil for over 183 days. Then yes, you're going to have to pay taxes in the US, and you're going to have to pay taxes in Brazil, potentially, right? Like, I mean, every situation is different, but from a legal framework, once you are a tax resident in Brazil, you need to pay taxes in Brazil. And in the U.S., most people know there is no turn off the switch. Even if you're not living in the U.S., Uncle Sam still wants you to pay taxes, right? Like even if you are working, even if you are living, like, I don't know, in Mars, if you are living in another galaxy, Uncle Sam still wants your money, okay? So there is no a way out. You're going to need to pay taxes in both countries. and there is no plan B, there is no creative solution to overcome this reality. Philippine Scenes, hello, thanks for all the info. Welcome to Philippines. It has been a while, good to see you back. We also have a Planeta Abstracta. Welcome, Planeta. Planeta has also been here for a few live streams. Good to see you back. Planeta says, we want to come to Brazil in April and look for real estate there. Should we already start to prepare the documents like a birth certificate, etc., for how long it stays valid? Yeah, so usually the timeline, for purchasing real estate in Brazil is longer than what people expect, and therefore, if you prepare documents too much or way in advance, chances are these documents are no longer gonna be good at the time of attending the closing, because they are going to inspect your documents at the time of closing, right? And for most transactions here at the firm, they are going to take at least 3 months going, from beginning to closing, right? So even if you get your documents like on day one, chances are, like when it gets to the closing, they are no longer good. Right, we're talking specifically about the birth certificate. Okay, some other documents, the registries, they are willing to turn a blind eye, but not the birth certificate. The birth certificate, historically, the registries here in Brazil, they wanted to be not older than 90 days. All right, Planeta. So what we do is like, when we work with our clients, we play by ear. We see how the transaction is going, and once they sign the purchase agreement, which should take several weeks after we start the work, that's when we give them the heads up, the green light for them to gather the documents that we're gonna indicate, depending on the transaction, the sellers, on whether they are going to apply for the golden visa or not, also known as the Viper or the real estate investment visa, and also depending on the state in which the property is located. A lot of ifs, right? That's Brazil. Brazil comes with upsides and downsides, and the red tape and bureaucracy are certainly some of the downsides of coming to Brazil, Planeta. But there you go. We have Christina. Christina says, thanks again. Just to confirm, do I need an apostille service for my birth certificate if applying in Brazil? Christina, no, you don't need it, right? Now, remember, whenever we are applying as a law firm, right? Like our clients, when we file their applications, they come with a letter of representation, not just to be fancy, but because it's required by the Brazilian immigration. So when our paperwork reaches the Brazilian immigration, it comes with an affidavit that we say that the paperwork is legit, right? So I cannot tell, like, if you apply by yourself, if they are gonna, use the same standard that they use when we are applying. But I can tell you that in our applications, and we have probably over 200 applications for the digital nomad visa in Brazil, 98% of the time we don't provide an apostille for the background check. Now, for the birth certificate, yes, you do need an apostille, right? So you were asking about the background check, and now you're asking about the birth certificate. When we're handling our applications, we always make sure that the birth certificate has an apostille, and we never ask our clients to get an apostille for their background check. Okay, so two different requirements here. Yes, for the birth certificate. Yes, apostille for the birth certificate. No apostille required for the background check. All right, Christina. And as a reminder, like when we are applying on behalf of our clients. Now, also worth to mention that the Brazilian immigration, they have discretion on how to apply the requirements, right? So always this, there is never like a 100% guaranteed answer, but there is like what we know from our experience with other applications. All right, Christina, I hope that was helpful. Christina is adding here, yes, Uncle Sam will always track us down. That's true, right? Like, I mean, such a huge machine as the United States, it does need a lot of funding. I guess, you cannot have such a country without, people paying for their taxes, right? That's the exchange. Okay, we have another participation here by Planeta. Thanks for explaining. Do you know how many months per year you have to stay after you get your permanent residency to get the Brazilian passport at the end? So, Planeta, when you apply for the residency, you get 4 years of temporary stay, okay? And the 4 years of temporary stay, in our interpretation, it does not allow you to apply for citizenship, okay? Because again, it's just a temporary stay. Now, before the 4 years of temporary stay expire, you're gonna apply for the actual permanent residency, right? So you buy the property, you get the title, you're gonna apply, for the residency, you're gonna get the temporary residency. And before the 4 years of temporary residency expire, that's when you're going to apply for the permanent residency. And then once you have the permanent residency, you need to stay in Brazil for 3 years out of 4 years in order to qualify for applying for the citizenship. So we are saying here that you basically need to stay in Brazil for about 8 years before you can get the passport, okay? And that's pretty reasonable by Brazilian standards or by international standards, right? That's not bad at all, okay? I understand, like, some people, they have an expectation to get like in a few years, but like in no major country does allow you to get a passport in less than, I would say, 4 years, right? Like, I mean, Portugal is pretty enticing. Portugal, it does allow you to get citizenship after just 5 years, right? Which is a pretty big deal. Brazil would make you to wait for 8 years, all right, Planeta? So that's the distinction. Just because you are mentioning Portugal, another interesting thing many of you know already, Brazil is still accepting the so-called golden visa based on acquisition of real estate. Portugal is no longer offering this option. Portugal still has the golden visa, but for Portugal there are two major changes. The first one is that you need to actually invest. You actually need to invest 500,000 euros, while in Brazil it's just like 200,000 US dollars. And in Portugal, again, if you buy a property with this money, you're not going to get the golden visa. You're going to need to invest in what they call under risk of loss types of investment, right? So you are going to be basically investing in funds that qualify for the golden visa. And again, these funds, they need to be at risk. Like, you cannot create a fund that is basically just, reinvesting money in the Portuguese treasury bonds, right? Like, that wouldn't qualify. It gotta be something like you invest your money in a fund, and this fund is gonna invest on its turn on Portuguese startups, right? That's the type of fund that would qualify for the golden visa. Okay, I hope that helps, that makes sense. Planeta has another question. And do you know, within those years, can I travel out of Brazil for, let's say, 4 months per year? So, like, again, for the first 4 years, this is the temporary residency, the first 4 years, right? You can travel as much as you want because you're not qualifying for the Brazilian passport, for the Brazilian citizenship. So the only requirement during those first 4 years is that you stay in Brazil for at least 2 weeks, 2 weeks every couple of years, right? So for a total of 4 years, it means you just need to be in Brazil for a single month. But again, you're not qualifying for anything other than keeping your residency. Okay, now, after you secure the permanent residency, if you want to qualify for the citizenship, you got to stay in Brazil for a total of 3 years out of 4 years. So another way of thinking about 3 years or 4 years, it could be like, I'm going to be traveling 3 months every year. And for 4 years, I'm traveling every year for 3 months. And so over 4 years, I'm going to be traveling 4 times 3 months, which equals 1 full year, right? So that's why I say you got to be in Brazil for 3 years out of 4 years, because for every year, you could potentially be outside of the country for 3 months. Okay, I hope that helps, Planeta. And checking here if we have any other participation. All right, just a ask for you guys, like if you could please like our live stream. That's gonna be very helpful for other people to find this content, and it's also helpful for our business. And so if you are enjoying our live stream, I'm going to ask you to just please click like. If you want to know when other live streams are going to be, on, you can also subscribe, because if you subscribe, whenever we start a new live stream, guess what? You're going to be alerted. You're going to receive a notice that our live streams are going live. And therefore, it's good for you as well. We're going to have our next live stream on Wednesday, right? Just letting you know, we still have an additional roughly 15 minutes, okay? And we can discuss topics of your interest in the meantime. And while we have you here, I would like to ask maybe Christina, Planeta, and other people that I see who are live here, like, why would you pick Brazil over Portugal, or vice versa, if you are actually eyeing Portugal instead of Brazil? Just like we were explaining at the beginning of this live stream, there is no right answer, right? Like, it's a very personal decision if you want to pursue Brazil or if you want to pursue Portugal. But I would like to ask you, to understand your mindset, like, would you rather, move to Brazil, or would you rather move to Portugal? I can tell that Christina and Planeta, they are both probably going to say, well, I prefer Brazil. But maybe if you could share 1 or 2 facts about why you prefer Brazil over Portugal, and maybe we have other people here who would prefer Portugal instead of Brazil, right? And we have an answer over here. Look at that. Planeta says, we are from Europe and would love to have a base in another part of the world. It makes complete sense, Planeta. Like, you are in Europe, right? Like, why would you relocate, to another country in Europe? It makes total sense. Thank you for answering, Planeta. And if you allow me, are you guys... just because of the name, are you guys from Poland? Is it a good guess that you guys are from Poland? We do have a number, very interesting, like we have a large number of clients from Poland. Now we have from Slovakia and Republic Czech. But Poland has been traditionally, a major source of clients. And we have some challenges with clients from Poland because I don't know why many times they don't have, like tax returns. And whenever they want to send the money, to Brazil, it does create some additional complication. I think we are blessed in a sense that we have been able to help our Polish clients, but they usually do come with a challenge, right? Well, that's my question for you, Planeta. Are you guys from Poland? If you allow me this question, and I'm waiting for Christina. Hopefully, Christina is still with us. I want to know why Christina would prefer Brazil over Portugal. That's just for our, for our entertaining here, Christina. That's not a test in any way. We just want to know your mindset, right? And if you are here with us, if you also want to share your thoughts on that, this is going to be welcome. In the meantime, someone is asking, what about President Lula? I mean, he has been through surgery. Are people concerned about his health state? Oh, well, I would say, right, just like the United States, in Brazil, there is a lot of polarization right now. So, half of the country, they like Lula. The other half, they hate Lula. So I think it's going to depend. It's going to depend on who you're asking this question, right? And I think, my opinion is that it does not matter in which side of the spectrum you are. We got to respect our presidents, okay? So I think, President Lula certainly deserves respect. And, from my side, I mean, I just hope he recovers well and he can, do the best in his power to help Brazil develop, to help, Brazil get even better, like from both an economic perspective and social development as well. As you probably know, like Brazil is one of the largest economies in the world, right? Like, I mean, I think we are in the 10th or 11th position. So, Brazil is a giant among nations by most standards. But unfortunately, there's still a lot to be done on the social arena. And I'm not saying, to give people handouts. I'm saying, trying to figure out why Brazil as a society is not like in the, so-called developing nations group, right? Like Brazil, I think nowadays is still a developing, not a developed nation, right? So what do we need to do? Like we have enough money. There is no shortage of money in Brazil. There is way too much money in Brazil, right? I'm not complaining. Maybe we can get even more money, but money is not a problem in Brazil. So what do we need to do, to do a better job at putting this huge amount of money to work in favor of the Brazilian society? All right. We have here Planeta. Yes, we are Polish. All right. So it was the right guess. During pandemic, when they closed the borders, it actually caused a lot of problems for us. Having a residency somewhere else would be great. So so maybe that's the reason why we see so many Polish clients. We do have a couple of Polish clients, Planeta, as we speak, buying properties in Brazil. One of them I remember from heart. And they are buying a really nice property in Rio de Janeiro, right? Like a big, like a nice size, let's say a nice size property, by the beach, right? Like, so really nice property. And by the way, really nice clients, okay? Like, I mean, most of our clients, they're such a joy to work with. They are respectful. They're always demanding, right? Like they're paying good bucks to work with us. They are always demanding, but they are also very respectful. So, so far, never had a problem with Polish clients, like really lovable clients. And if you guys need our help, we're gonna be pleased to assist you as well. Planeta says we just finished watching O Mecanismo and almost forgot the name Lula. Because there the character's name was Gino, Yeah, so Lula is like, I'm referring to President Lula, right? Lula is the nickname of our president. Our president's official name is Luiz Inácio da Silva, and Lula was just a nickname that it was given to him, like, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, when he was still working, like as an employee at a cars factory in the São Paulo area. Okay, and he was given. He was working for the syndicates, and he was working, like to represent like employees of the car industry in São Paulo. But now everybody knows, just say like President Lula, right, or just Lula. Okay, and very interesting, a person. He came like from the northeast of Brazil. He was born in poverty. He never really had, opportunities, or maybe he chose not to. But who am I to say? But he doesn't have a like formal education, right? Like, I mean, he's mostly like a self-made man, and but he's still, very sharp. Like, he's, I think, 80 years old or 81 as we speak, but he's still sharp, and he's still able to debate, to elaborate his ideas. And I think he doesn't have as much traction as he had during the first couple of turns that he had as a president in Brazil. This is his third turn, right? So he was a president for two mandates in a row, and this is the third one. And I don't think he's as sharp as he was during the first two, but he's still very, how can I say, very functional. He's still delivering, okay, and therefore that's what we have for now on President Lula. But he went through two surgeries in the brain. He suffered like a, like an accident at home. Like, people said, like, I mean, we never know what exactly happened, but the story is he was in his like bathroom, and he was cutting his his nails, and he lost his balance, and he bumped his head big time on the floor. And because of that, there was some type of trauma to his brain. But thank God, like, it didn't impact in his, at least from what we can tell, it didn't impact on his mental capabilities whatsoever. But he did have like accumulation of blood in the back of his head, so they had to open a hole so the blood would leave his head and stop like the inflammation. So that's where we are right now. And I'm taking a look here at his picture on one of the main Brazilian newspapers, and as you can see over here, like, he's wearing a hat, right, because of the surgery. This is President Lula, as you can see over here. Okay, but he's recovering well, and hopefully he's going to be fully recovered soon. Okay, let's see. All right, we still have time for probably a couple of topics, and let's see if we have any other question still pending an answer. All right, Planeta says, wish health for Lula and everyone in Brazil. Thank you, Planeta. That's the same thing here with us. It does not matter your political orientation. We do wish President Lula, a recovery, and that he's in his best to assist Brazil in the next stage. All right, let's go back. Let's go back to our list of questions here. Okay, what about the digital nomad? Can we renew it for how many times? Like, I heard it was just once, but now I see people saying, as many times as you want. So what is the correct answer? All right, so this question goes like this. If you read the regulation in Brazil for the digital nomad visa, it says like you get the digital nomad visa and then you can apply for renew once. Okay, so if you go by the book, if you read the regulation, the interpretation is that you can renew for only once. However, there is also the provision in such regulation that new regulation would be issued, was going to be issued to address the renewal, right? So there was a provision saying that applicants could renew once, and that additional future regulation would be issued to address the renewal. And guess what? There was never this additional regulation, and therefore the renewal of the digital nomad visa is in a kind of limbo, right? There is no regulation issued to address the renewal, and what we see as we speak is that people are getting more than a single renewal. So some of our clients, they are in the second renewal. Now, if you ask me, like usually the question goes like this, okay, so do you guarantee I'm going to get a second renewal? Of course, we do not guarantee, right? Like, I mean, we are lawyers. We are not, gods, or we are not like foretellers, or fortune tellers. Like, we cannot foresee the future. What we can tell you is that as we speak, the Brazilian immigration seems to be interpreting this provision such as in the absence of further regulation, we're just going to keep renewing indefinitely, right? But that's today's interpretation. That doesn't mean that this interpretation is going to be the same thing 2 weeks from now, and therefore we don't guarantee anything, right? Like for our clients, that's exactly how we say, listen, you got like the first one, you got a renewal, that was the guaranteed part of it, right? Now the second renewal, you're taking your shot, and most people are fine with it. Like they say, oh, okay, it makes sense, right? Like they're saying that other clients are getting, which is good, but they are also saying they're not going to guarantee that I'm going to get, which kind of makes sense because, in immigration, by the way, there is never like a guarantee. There is always discretion on that the government has to give you or not the benefit. So there is never, something like, you have a right to immigrate to Brazil, right? Like, I mean, most people, I think they know that instinctively or intuitively, but some people, they think, well, don't I have a right to go to Brazil? No, you don't have a right. In immigration terms, this is always a privilege, meaning that you can get it, maybe you can get it, if the government thinks you should get it, but if the government thinks you should not get it, like it's not like you can sue the government to make it the government give you the immigration benefit. And that's really across the globe, right? If you go to the United States, that's the same thing. If you go to Portugal, and I guess most of Europe, right? Does it make sense? All right. So yes, that's the whole point on the renewal of the digital nomad visa. All right, Planeta is asking, do you know the YouTube channel called Wandering Investor? Ken talks about getting different passports in real estate. I don't think we ever heard about this one, Planeta, but we did have participations here in our channel of, like YouTubers on other channels and people addressing, yes, different passports and real estate. This is a different take on it, right? Like more like, the digital nomad community, or people who are just like as you, Planeta, like getting like plan Bs in other countries. In our approach over here, like we are all about Brazil and Portugal, but that's always good to know new channels. I'm gonna certainly take a look into that. And with that, I wanna tell you guys I'm gonna be back on Wednesday. Okay, I hope to see you over here again. On Wednesdays, we meet at 12:30 Rio de Janeiro time. So it's a little bit earlier in the day. And you are very welcome to participate. And with that, I'm going to wish you a blessed rest of your Sunday. And I'm going to see you again on Wednesday. You take care.